June 24, 1982, British Airways Flight 9 takes off from London's Heathrow Airport for New Zealand. There were 248 passengers and 15 crew members in the plane. The plane flies as per its schedule, and within some time, it is in the sky, but as soon as when the plane reaches an altitude of 37,000 feet, very strange lights start shining outside the plane. The pilot thought that the weather outside was bad, hence this happened. But the surprising thing was that neither the weather was bad nor there was any technical issue in the plane, due to which all this was happening. Gradually, these lights shining outside the plane started increasing. The pilot felt something. Can't understand, and suddenly all 4 engines of the plane fail. When these engines were failing, a strange kind of light was burning in them. On looking at the plane, it seemed as if the plane had reached another world. Sitting inside, passengers and pilots were watching all this, but they could not do anything. They could not understand anything, and then something happened which no one could have even thought about. After such an accident happened in this flight, many questions were raised with it, like what happened to this British Airways flight that day? Did the plane ever land back, and if not, where did the plane disappear at that time on the 24th of June 1982 at around 8:04 p.m.? British Airways Flight 9 takes off from London's Heathrow Airport. This flight was going to Auckland, New Zealand via Mumbai, Kuala Lumpur, Perth and Melbourne. This plane was being flown by 2 very experienced pilots, 32-year-old Senior First Officer Roger Gervais and 41-year-old. Apart from the 2 pilots in the Captain Eric Moody plane, there was also 40-year-old Senior Engineer Officer Barry Freeman. Shortly after takeoff, the plane crossed Jakarta and entered the Indian territorial waters. Enters at exactly 8:04 local time. The plane is over the small islands of Jakarta. During this time, Flight Captain Moody goes to the boss room, and when he comes out of the boss room, he sees smoke in a corner of the plane. Captain Moody is seen coming out. He immediately goes inside the cockpit. But after going inside the cockpit, what Captain Moody saw was mind-blowing. Captain Moody sees that all around the plane, a strange bright light was burning. The captain felt that the weather outside was bad, and all this was happening due to lightning. So he checked the weather radar, but what was seen in the weather radar was even more surprising. Captain Moody and his co-pilot are shocked to see that the weather was absolutely clear for miles, let alone around the plane. They had neither seen such a problem before nor had they heard about it. The co-pilot immediately runs towards the passenger cabin, and when he looks out of the window, he sees that the entire plane is glowing with a bright light. All 4 engines of the plane were also glowing. The entire plane is like a plane from a sci-fi movie. The whole scene outside was looking like a terrible, beautiful dream. Slowly, the smoke started increasing in the cockpit and cabin, and after exactly 4 minutes suddenly, the first officer shouted that engine no. 4 had broken down. Flames were coming out from engine number 4, and within a minute, the other 3 engines also got broken. A light looking like fire was coming out from behind all 4 engines. The pilot, I had never heard of such a problem nor had I encountered it, so the first officer immediately contacted ATC. He told ATC that all the engines of the plane had broken down, but the pilot did not contact ATC properly. So ATC felt that the plane's only engine number 4 has broken down. At this time, the plane was at an altitude of 37,000 feet, and within some time, it came to an altitude of 26,000 feet. By now, all the sensors of the plane were damaged, and the oxygen level inside had also come down significantly. At such a time, the plane's auxiliary power unit, i.e. AP, maintains the oxygen level of the passengers. But when the flight was cancelled, even the AP was not working. The pilots had understood that now death is certain, but still he did not give up. Every plane has a glide ratio. That is, the more horizontal distance the plane covers, the more its altitude decreases. The glide ratio of Boeing 747 is 15:1. That is, Boeing 747, after going 15 feet forward and coming down 1 foot, the pilot calculated the glide ratio of the plane so that the plane could somehow reach Jakarta Airport. But the unfortunate thing was that there was a mountain between the plane and Jakarta Airport, and because all 4 engines of the plane had failed, if the pilot tried to take the plane to Jakarta Airport, it would definitely collide with that mountain. This incident of British Airways Flight 9 was a wonder in itself, but one such wonder happened in water also. This incident was Titanic. Titanic happened in water. A very strange incident happened in water. It was a horrifying accident, and if you want to know more about that hair-raising accident of Titanic, then you must listen to the story of Titanic audiobook. You can listen to it on Cook FM. Here you will get more than 4,000 audios. Books and book series will be available. Although the annual subscription of Cook AA is 1,999 Indian rupees, but if you use my coupon code EPIC50, then you will get its annual subscription for just 1 Indian rupee. This offer is valid only for the first 250 people. Now coming back to the topic, let us talk about British Airways Flight 9. At that time the plane was at an altitude of 20,000 feet. First Officer Gravis tried several times to restart the engine, but each time they failed. Now tired and defeated, Captain Moody and First Officer Gravis decide that if the engine does not start again even at an altitude of 10 feet, then they will land the plane in the sea. Boeing aircraft are designed in such a way that they can land on water and remain floating on the surface for several hours. The passengers present in the flight were not able to understand anything, and there was panic everywhere. Now the plane was at an altitude of 13,000 feet. As the plane was coming down, that bright light. By this time, the pilot could no longer take the risk of taking the plane any further, so he started making preparations for an emergency landing of the plane in the sea. The pilot was almost ready to land the plane. But then a miracle happens. Engine number 4 of the plane starts back up, and shortly after this, the other 3 engines also start up again. Now that bright light is also completely gone, and the entire control is in the hands of the pilots. Back the pilot arrives, makes the plane cross that mountain and moves towards Jakarta Airport, but then a new problem arises. Engine number 2 of the plane once again becomes dead, but this too is of such a big size.
There was no problem. The big problem was that the pilot could not see anything clearly in front. The entire view ahead of the cockpit was blurred. The windscreen was completely blurred and blocked so much that the runway lights were also not visible properly, but the pilots had no other option, so they slowly made an emergency landing of the plane, and luckily their landing was successful and the lives of all the passengers were saved. This plane has now landed safely, but even after this landing there were some questions which were not resolved at all, like what happened to the plane at an altitude of 37,000 feet. What happened and where did the smoke in the cockpit and passenger cabin come from? Why were the lights on in all 4 engines, and how did the engine start back up at an altitude of 13,000 feet even after being dead? After this accident, there were many discussions in the media and among the people for a long time. There were many discussions, out of which the biggest discussion was that the plane had gone to another world, but when this entire accident was investigated, something else came to the fore. The investigation revealed that there were many scratches on the entire body of the plane, and these scratches were caused by very small pebble-like stones. These stones were like small particles present in the smoke coming out of a volcano. Then when more investigation was done, it was found that a few days ago there was an explosion in a volcano in Jakarta. In a volcanic eruption, mainly smoke, silicate and ash come out. The ash that comes out in the explosion is completely white, and it is so light that it can reach thousands of feet high, and it can go hundreds of kilometers away. And when this volcano erupted in Jakarta, its roar reached an altitude of 37,000 feet, and when this Boeing 747 of British Airways was emerging from the ashes, due to its high speed, it was present in the ashes. There was a friction between the particle and its body, and due to this friction, light started burning on the entire body of the plane, and possibly the same ash had gone into the engine as well, due to which the engine of the plane also started burning. This type of light started burning. The weather sensor installed in the plane detects the smoke outside with the help of water drops present in the atmosphere, but due to the presence of ash in the entire atmosphere, there were no water drops around, and the weather sensor could not detect this smoke in the plane. Silicate went inside the engine, and it melted due to the high temperature of the engine, due to which fire was visible in the engine, and due to this silicate the engine also got jammed. Same thing happened with other sensors of the plane also. This does not only damage the sensors and engines of the plane, but it also rubbed the windscreen of the plane so much that it became completely blurry. Then when the engines of the plane remained closed for a long time, The silicate cooled down and turned into solid, and when the engine was turned back on, when it was started, this solid broke and separated from the engine, and when the engine started, it was very light due to the smoke, so when the plane reached an altitude of 15,000 feet, there was no smoke and all the sensors started working again. Although the windscreen of the plane was still very blurry, but due to the pilot's intelligence, the plane landed safely and the lives of all the passengers were saved. After this accident, there was some time for safety. That route was declared a no-flying zone. Similarly, if you want to know about another airplane comedy, then here you can click on any one of the videos coming on your screen. Thank you.